grabbed their attention immediately. A young waitress named Maya was working at a busy restaurant one Friday evening. She had a 3-month-old puppy named Buddy that she'd rescued from the streets. Buddy had nowhere else to go, so she'd brought him to work in a small carrier, hidden under the hostess stand. But when the restaurant manager discovered the puppy, everything changed. He didn't just ask her to take the dog home. He physically kicked her. In front of customers. In front of other employees. He humiliated her and fired her on the spot. Maya fell to the ground, tears streaming down her face, holding her puppy close. What the manager didn't know was that a silent observer was sitting in the corner of the restaurant. A man who looked like any other customer. A man who had the training and the resources to change everything. He was a Navy SEAL. And he was about to teach this manager a lesson about compassion that he would never forget. If this story of justice and unexpected intervention moves your heart, please smash that like button right now. And subscribe to this channel because we celebrate stories of real people standing up for what's right every single day. Let's dive into this incredible story. Build the story slowly and clearly. The restaurant was called Titan's Grill, and it was one of the most popular restaurants in the coastal town of San Diego, California. It was a trendy place with an upscale menu, high prices, and an even higher opinion of itself. The manager of the restaurant was a man named Derek Mitchell. Derek was 52 years old, had been managing restaurants for 20 years, and had built a reputation for being harsh, demanding, and difficult to work for. He believed in running a tight ship, as he liked to say. What that really meant was that he believed in control. Total control. Derek had rules for everything. Dress codes. Speech patterns. How to hold a tray. How to smile at customers. And most importantly, zero tolerance for anything that deviated from his vision of professional. He'd fired people for being 5 minutes late. He'd fired people for not smiling enough. He'd fired people for personal problems that affected their work. In Derek's world, your personal life didn't matter. Only productivity and perfection mattered. The staff turned over constantly because nobody could stand working for him. But Derek didn't care. He saw employees as replaceable. There were always desperate people looking for jobs. Maya Rodriguez was 24 years old, and she'd been working at Titan's Grill for 8 months. She was an excellent waitress. Customers loved her. She was friendly, efficient, and genuinely cared about making people's dining experience special. But she was struggling financially. Really struggling. Maya had grown up in a difficult home. Her father had abandoned the family when she was 2 years old. Her mother worked multiple jobs but still barely made enough to cover rent and utilities. Maya had put herself through community college while working part-time jobs. She'd graduated with a degree in social work, but in the current economy, entry-level social work positions didn't pay well, and they weren't hiring. So Maya worked as a waitress at Titan's Grill. It wasn't the job she dreamed of, but it paid the bills. Mostly. 3 weeks before this incident, Maya's life had changed in a small way when she found a puppy behind her apartment building. The puppy was starving. Its ribs were showing. It had scars on its face, like it had been in fights. It was suffering from mange. Nobody had claimed it. Nobody seemed to want it. Maya brought it to an animal shelter, but they told her they were at capacity. They told her they might not be able to save the puppy if they took it in. They told her that resources were limited. So Maya did something crazy. She decided to rescue the puppy herself. She named him Buddy. She spent money she didn't have on veterinary bills. She bought dog food and a bed and toys. She taught Buddy how to trust again. She showed him what love looked like. Buddy was her best friend. He was also a huge problem because Maya was barely surviving financially, and now she had an animal depending on her. But she couldn't bring herself to give him up. On the Friday evening when everything changed, Maya was working a double shift. She'd picked up an extra shift because her rent was due and she was $200 short. She couldn't afford to lose this job, even though working for Derek was soul-crushing. The problem was childcare, or in this case, puppy care. Maya didn't have anyone to watch Buddy during her shift. She didn't have family nearby. She couldn't afford a dog walker. And she was terrified of leaving Buddy alone in her apartment for 12 hours. So she made a decision that would cost her everything. She brought Buddy to work in a small carrier and hid him under the hostess stand. She planned to check on him during her breaks. She planned to slip him some water and maybe some food. She was going to keep him safe and hidden until the end of her shift. It was a bad decision, but it was the only decision she could make given her circumstances. Now, let's talk about the other person in this story, the one who would change everything. His name was Commander James Mitchell. He was 46 years old and had been a Navy SEAL for 20 years. He'd completed over 300 combat missions. He'd trained thousands of soldiers. He'd been decorated for bravery multiple times. But James was tired. He was tired of war, tired of violence, tired of seeing the worst of humanity. His last assignment had been particularly brutal, a hostage rescue in a hostile region that had gone sideways. They'd saved the hostages, but one of his men, a young kid named Marcus, had been killed. James had held Marcus in his arms as he died. He'd looked into Marcus's eyes and seen him slip away. After that, James knew he needed to get out. He put in his papers and was officially retired from active duty. He came back to his hometown of San Diego to figure out what the rest of his life would look like. He wasn't good at sitting still. He wasn't good at relaxing. So he spent his days working with a nonprofit that helped homeless veterans. He mentored young military recruits. He tried to figure out his purpose in a world where he wasn't fighting anymore. On this particular Friday evening, James had gone to Titan's Grill because a friend had recommended it. He was sitting alone in a booth, eating dinner and trying to be normal. Trying to be a civilian. He wasn't looking for trouble. He wasn't looking for anything. Really. He was just there. Make viewers emotionally invested. About halfway through his meal, James noticed something. He was trained to observe. He was trained to notice small details that others missed. So when he saw a young waitress glancing nervously at a spot under the hostess stand, he noticed it. When she slipped away during a break and went to that same spot, James watched carefully. He saw her pull out a small carrier. He saw her open it and give something water. A puppy. James had trained himself not to have emotional reactions to things. Emotion got in the way of tactical thinking. But something about this scene made his chest tighten. He watched the waitress, Maya, according to her name tag, carefully hiding the carrier again, checking to make sure the coast was clear. James understood what was happening. This young woman was risking her job to protect something she loved. He recognized that kind of loyalty and sacrifice. He'd seen it in soldiers. He'd seen it in people willing to die for each other. He watched her continue with her shift, checking on the puppy during every break, always nervous, always watching for management. For about 2 hours, everything was fine. Then Derek came out of his office. Derek walked through the dining room, conducting what he called quality inspections. He looked at the way tables were set. He looked at how waiters walked. He looked for anything out of place. He was walking past the hostess stand when he noticed something. A small sound. A whimper. Derek's eyes narrowed. He walked toward the sound and looked under the stand. He saw the carrier. He saw the puppy inside, a small golden brown mixed breed with sad eyes and scarred fur. Derek's face turned red. "Maya!" he shouted across the restaurant. Everyone stopped eating. Everyone looked up. "Get over here now." Maya's face went white. She excused herself from the table she was serving and hurried over. "What is this?" Derek demanded, pointing at the carrier. It's my dog," Maya said quietly. "I'm sorry. I didn't have anyone to watch him and..." "I don't care," Derek cut her off. His voice was loud enough that every single person in the restaurant could hear him. "This is a restaurant. We have health codes. We have standards. I told you that when you got hired. Absolutely nothing unprofessional." "He's not hurting anyone," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "He's been quiet the whole shift. You just violated policy," Derek said coldly. "You're fired. Effective immediately." Customers started looking at each other uncomfortably. Some people put down their forks. "But I need this job," Maya said, and her voice cracked. "Please. I can't. I have bills. I have veterinary bills. I have..." "Not my problem," Derek said. Get your things and get out." Maya's eyes filled with tears. She didn't move. That's when Derek did something that crossed a line. He reached down and grabbed the puppy's carrier. "Give me the dog," he said. "I'm calling animal control. This thing looks like it has diseases anyway." Maya instinctively reached for the carrier. "No, please. Buddy is just a puppy. He's healthy. I can't." "Get your hands off my property," Derek said. He yanked the carrier away from her. Buddy yelped, scared and confused. And Maya, driven by pure maternal instinct, stepped in front of Derek to protect the puppy. "You can't take him," she said firmly, standing her ground. "His my dog." Derek's face turned even darker red. "You know what?" he said. "I'll make this easy for you." And then he did something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He kicked her. He literally kicked Maya in the leg, hard enough to knock her off balance. She fell to the ground, and Buddy's carrier flew out of Derek's hands and skidded across the floor. The entire restaurant went silent. Customers gasped. One woman stood up and said, "What the hell are you doing?" But Derek didn't care. He was beyond reasonable at this point. He was just angry. "If you're not out of here in 5 minutes, I'm calling the police and having you arrested for trespassing," he said to Maya, who was on the ground, crying, her leg throbbing. Maya crawled over to Buddy's carrier and scooped it up, holding her puppy against her chest. She grabbed her coat with trembling hands and ran out of the restaurant. Buddy was whimpering. Maya was sobbing. She was homeless and jobless, all for trying to protect someone she loved. Karma or the big reveal. James Mitchell sat very still. In his 20 years as a Navy SEAL, he had been trained not to react emotionally to violence. He had seen real violence. He had done things in service to his country that he would never speak about. But what he had just witnessed was violence against a young woman for the crime of protecting a helpless animal. And James made a decision. He carefully finished his meal. He paid his bill with his credit card. He left a generous tip. He didn't make eye contact with anyone. He didn't cause a scene. He simply left the restaurant, got in his truck, and followed Maya. He found her sitting on a bench in a public park near the restaurant, holding Buddy, crying into the puppy's fur. James approached her slowly, non-threatening. "Hi," he said quietly. "My name is James. I saw what happened in there." Maya looked up at him, her eyes red and puffy. I don't have any money. If you're looking for..." "I'm not looking for anything," James said calmly. He sat down on the bench, but not too close, respecting her space. "I just wanted to check if you were okay." "No," Maya said, her voice breaking. "I'm not okay. I lost my job. I have no money. I have no place to go. And I had to protect him because he's just a baby and I can't." She couldn't finish the sentence. James looked at Buddy. He saw the puppy, clearly mistreated, clearly scarred, clearly had been through hard times. And he saw the love in this young woman's eyes as she held him. "You did the right thing," James said simply. "It doesn't matter," Maya said. "The right thing just cost me everything." James reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He opened his camera and showed Maya a video. It was the entire incident. Derek kicking her. Derek confiscating the puppy. Everything. Recorded on the restaurant's security camera system, which James had made sure to pull up on his phone before he left. What is this?" Maya asked. "Evidence," James said. "You have rights. What he did is called assault. You can press charges. You can sue the restaurant. This is documented proof of what happened." Maya stared at the screen. She couldn't believe it. She started. "I'll never work in this town again if I press charges. He'll badmouth me. I'll be unhireable." "No," James said firmly. "Because the internet exists. And because I'm going to make sure of it." Over the next week, James did something that Derek never saw coming. James had connections. He had a platform. He had credibility as a respected veteran. And he had a story that people needed to hear. He contacted local news outlets with the video. He explained who he was and why this mattered. He made it clear that assault against an employee for trying to protect an animal was unacceptable. The story went viral. Navy SEAL exposes restaurant manager's assault on young waitress. Manager kicked employee for protecting rescue puppy. Decorated veteran speaks out against workplace violence. Within 48 hours, the video had over 5 million views. The restaurant started receiving calls from outraged customers. People were canceling reservations. People were leaving one-star reviews. People were calling for Derek to be fired. The owner of Titan's Grill, a corporate executive named Richard Chen who'd never even met Derek, was suddenly very interested in what his manager had done. He called an emergency meeting. Derek was fired that same day. The restaurant issued a public apology and offered to rehire Maya at a higher wage with full benefits. But the story didn't end there. James did something even more important. He started a fund. He called it the Buddy Fund, named after Maya's puppy. The fund was designed to help workers who lost their jobs because they stood up for what was right. He seeded the fund with $10,000 of his own money. Then he used his platform to ask others to contribute. Within 2 weeks, over $50,000 had been raised. News outlets picked up the story again. Other people started sharing stories about being fired for standing up for their values. Other victims of workplace abuse started coming forward. The story became bigger than just one restaurant. It became a conversation about workers' rights. About the courage it takes to stand up to authority. About the fact that protecting the vulnerable isn't shameful, it's noble. Maya called James and asked to meet him for coffee. When they met, Maya brought Buddy with her. The puppy had healed significantly in the 2 weeks since the incident. His fur was growing back healthy. His eyes were bright and full of trust. "I don't know how to thank you," Maya said to James. "You don't need to thank me," James said. "You did what was right. I just helped make sure that doing what's right didn't cost you everything." "But it could have," Maya said. "If you hadn't been there. If you hadn't recorded that. If you hadn't used your platform. I would have just been fired. I would have just disappeared. Nobody would have known." "That's why it matters," James said. "That's why I couldn't stay silent. Because most of the time, the people who stand up to power are forgotten. Most of the time, the victim just becomes another cautionary tale. Someone who learned the hard way not to rock the boat." He looked at Buddy. "But you didn't just rock the boat. You made it impossible for people to ignore. You forced people to pay attention to something they wanted to pretend didn't matter. That takes real courage." The moral takeaway. 6 months later, Maya had a new job. A better job. She worked for a non-profit that helped rescue animals, and her salary was actually enough to live on. She'd used some of the money from the Buddy Fund to finish her social work degree and was now working in animal welfare advocacy. But more importantly, she'd learned something about herself and about the world. She'd learned that standing up for what's right is always worth it, even when it's scary. Buddy became a local celebrity. He was featured on the local news. He was interviewed on podcasts. Okay, Maya was interviewed while holding Buddy, but still. He became the mascot for the animal rescue nonprofit. And every time someone saw Buddy, they were reminded that one young woman had the courage to stand up to authority and protect something she loved. They were reminded that justice was possible. They were reminded that doing the right thing matters. Derek Mitchell, on the other hand, became a cautionary tale. He tried to get another job as a restaurant manager, but nobody would hire him. His name was permanently associated with the incident. His reputation was destroyed. He eventually left San Diego and moved to another city, where he found work at a small restaurant for half his previous salary. The incident he thought he'd gotten away with, the casual violence, the abuse of power, had actually cost him everything. But the most important part of this story is what James learned. After his years as a Navy SEAL, James had thought his purpose was over. He'd thought that once he stopped fighting literal wars, he wouldn't have a place in the world anymore. But what happened with Maya and Buddy showed him something crucial. The fight for justice doesn't end when you leave the military. It just changes form. In the military, he'd fought against external enemies. In civilian life, he could fight against injustice, against abuse of power, against the system that allowed people like Derek to hurt vulnerable people with impunity. So James started a non-profit organization called Guardian Angels. The organization helps workers who've experienced abuse or injustice at work. They provide legal support. They help victims go public. They fight for accountability. The organization has helped hundreds of people. It's exposed corrupt managers, abusive employers, and systems that exploit vulnerable workers. And it all started because James decided not to stay silent. The lesson. This story teaches us something critical about power, courage, and responsibility. First, it teaches us that the powerful often use their position to intimidate the vulnerable. Derek didn't kick Maya because she truly violated some sacred rule. He kicked her because he could. He had the power, and she didn't. Abuse of power is not always about overt violence. Sometimes it's about the small cruelties that powerful people inflict on people who can't fight back. It's about firing someone for being late. It's about making someone's life harder because you can. It's about using your position to punish people for not complying with your will. What Derek did to Maya is something that happens in workplaces every day. People are punished for being human. People are fired for standing up for themselves or someone they love. And most of the time, nobody speaks up. Nobody documents it. Nobody makes it public. The victim just accepts the punishment and tries to move on. But this story teaches us that doesn't have to be the way it is. Second, this story teaches us about the power of someone with privilege using their platform to speak up for someone without privilege. James had something Maya didn't have: credibility, platform, and resources. In our society, a Navy SEAL is listened to. A veteran is respected. James had connections in the media and the social media world. Maya, on the other hand, was just a waitress. If she'd gone public with her story alone, she might have been dismissed. She's just disgruntled. She's just trying to get attention. But when James, a respected figure, decided to amplify her story, people listened. This is incredibly important. If you have privilege, whether it's wealth, education, social status, connections, or visibility, you have a responsibility to use it to help people who don't have it. You don't get to sit on the sidelines when you have the power to make a difference. Third, this story teaches us about the importance of bearing witness. James was just a random customer in a restaurant. He had no obligation to pay attention to what was happening. He could have finished his meal, left a tip, and never thought about it again. But instead, he paid attention. He witnessed what happened. And then he did something about it. In a world where injustice is everywhere, bearing witness is the first step toward justice. If nobody notices, if nobody pays attention, if nobody says anything, then abuse continues in silence. Then victims suffer alone. But if someone, anyone, pays attention and says something, things can change. Fourth, this story teaches us about what real courage looks like. We often think of courage as grand gestures. We think of heroes doing incredible things. But real courage is usually smaller. It's a young woman choosing to protect a vulnerable creature even though it might cost her job. It's a Navy SEAL deciding to speak up even though he could have walked away. Real courage is doing the right thing when the cost is high. Maya didn't know that there would be a Navy SEAL watching. She didn't know that her story would go viral. She didn't know that her career would actually improve as a result of her actions. She just knew that Buddy needed her. So she protected him. And she was willing to pay the price for that, whatever it was. That's courage. The most important lesson. Justice is not automatic. Justice is something we have to create. In a perfect world, Derek would have been held accountable the moment he kicked Maya. In a perfect world, abuse of power would have immediate consequences. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where powerful people get away with things every single day. Where victims stay silent because they're scared. Where injustice persists because nobody speaks up. Justice happens when someone decides that silence is not an option. When someone decides that doing the right thing is more important than staying safe. Maya did that by protecting Buddy. James did that by speaking up. And together, they created justice. That's what we're all capable of. That's what we all need to do more of. Asterisk, here's what this means for you. Asterisk. Be like Maya. When you see something that needs protecting, protect it. Even when it's scary. Even when it might cost you something. Even when you're not sure it will work out. And be like James. When you see someone being treated unfairly, use whatever platform or power you have to speak up. Don't stay silent. Don't pretend you didn't see it. Don't tell yourself it's not your problem. Because it is your problem. Because we're all responsible for the world we create together. If you have power, use it. If you have a platform, use it. If you have influence, use it. Use it to fight for justice. Use it to protect the vulnerable. Use it to make sure that doing the right thing doesn't cost people everything. That's how we build a better world. One act of courage at a time. I hope you felt everything in this story. I hope you saw yourself in Maya, or maybe you saw the potential in yourself to be like James. If this story of courage, justice, and unexpected intervention moved your heart, please asterisk hit that like button right now. Asterisk your support helps us share these powerful stories with people who need to hear them. And please asterisk subscribe to this channel. Asterisk subscribe because you believe that justice matters. Subscribe because you want to be part of a community that celebrates courage and stands up against abuse of power. Subscribe because you want to hear more stories about real people changing the world. Now I want you to comment below. Have you ever stood up for what's right even though it was scary? Have you ever witnessed injustice and done something about it? Have you ever been protected by someone who had the power to make a difference? Your story matters. Your comment matters. And it might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Asterisk, here's what I want you to do. Asterisk. First, if you're being abused or mistreated at work, know that you have rights. Document everything. Talk to people you trust. Reach out to worker advocacy organizations. You don't have to suffer in silence. Second, if you witness injustice, speak up. Use your voice. Use your platform. Use your influence. Don't stay silent. Third, if you see someone with power using it to hurt others, call it out. Tell your friends. Tell social media. Make it impossible to ignore. Also, asterisk share this video with your family and friends. Asterisk share it with people who need to remember what courage looks like. Share it with people who need to know that speaking up matters. Share it with people who need hope. The algorithm helps us reach more people when you engage with this video. So please, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for caring about these stories. Thank you for being the kind of person who believes that justice is possible and that one person can make a difference. I'll see you in the next video, where we celebrate more stories of real people standing up against injustice and creating change in this world. God bless you all. Person with praying hands. Asterisk the end. Asterisk.